Okay, we are going to learn about our two-party political system now. So here we go with electing our leaders.
Look, Mr. Ravato is lying to us.
Tell me something I don't know.
I open-mouth kissed a horse once.
Say what?
That's something you don't know.
Okay, so Chapter 10, electing leaders, we're going to look at a two-party system, political party organization, the right to vote, and nominating and electing our leaders. So we have a two-party system here in the United States. We have the Democrats and the Republicans. The Republicans would be the elephant, the GOP stands for Grand Old Party, and the Democrats then are the donkey.
Minnie-Me loves chocolate. Scotty don't.
Well, you certainly know how to compliment a woman. Well, if you'll excuse me.
Our objectives for Section 1, what is the role of political parties in the U.S.? How did political parties develop in the U.S.? And how do one-party and two-party political systems differ? Okay, roles of a two-party system. A two-party system plays a vital role in our country's government. This system allows for practical politics, to nominate candidates, create stances on public issues, and allows each party to check and watch the other political party. So, what is a political party? You need to make sure you write this down. A political party is an organization of citizens who have similar ideas on public issues. Okay, it really isn't any more difficult than that. I'll go ahead and make this bold so you can see it, and also increase the size of the font so it's a little bit easier to read. But there is what the definition of a political party is. So going back to what we were looking at earlier, we have our two-party system in the United States. It's a way for a large group with similar ideas to get things done. So we said again, the definition is an organization of citizens who have similar ideas on public issues. So for example, there are differing opinions as to how our country should come about getting its money through taxes. Should it raise taxes on the rich, and so the more money you make, the more you have to pay in taxes, because some people feel that, well, if a person is rich, then they can afford to pay more in taxes? Or do you give the rich tax breaks? And because most of these people are people that are large business owners, they're corporate CEOs of very large corporations, they may be presidents of banks, things like that. Or do you give them tax breaks and then allow them to take that money that they're saving and then create more jobs with it? So there's differing ideas each way. Some say tax the rich, some say give them more breaks. Political parties allow people to take positions on public issues and work to pass laws. They allow individuals to have a stronger voice within a group. And parties have to compromise and work together, because sometimes even within a party, you're going to have some disagreements as far as how aggressive people should be. And so sometimes there needs to be compromise. Sometimes there isn't compromise, and that happened way back in 1912 when William Howard Taft wanted to run for re-election, and Teddy Roosevelt didn't want to. Roosevelt and Taft were from the same political party. Neither of them wanted to give way, so Roosevelt ended up forming his own political party. Now, another thing about political parties is, one thing they will do is, after an election, The party that does not win the party that does not win will watch to see if the other party makes mistakes. Okay, and so let me give you an example of this. In 2008, when Barack Obama first ran for president, and he ran against John McCain and Sarah Palin. And John McCain, or Barack Obama, said that one of his promises in his campaigning was that by 2012 he was going to have all troops in Iraq out of Iraq. And he did that. Let's say that we get to 2012 and we still have troops in Iraq. You can bet that the Republicans are going to make notice of that, and they're going to say Barack Obama does not keep his word. He promised to have the troops out of Iraq. We still have troops in Iraq, so therefore how can you trust him? So when we said that the party that loses will watch the winning party to see if they make any mistakes, that's just an example. Okay, the beginnings of a two-party system. The Federalists were a group of individuals that believed in a strong federal government. A leading member of the Federalists was Alexander Hamilton. So that's one thing that you do need to get in your notes. Let's get that written down as some extra information, that the Federalists were led by Alexander Hamilton. Better capitalize his name so we're politically correct. And back during this time, they weren't really creative. The Anti-Federalists There we go. The Anti-Federalists were led by Thomas Jefferson. So we want to make sure that we have that information down. There you go again. Federalists were led by Alexander Hamilton. Anti-Federalists were led by Thomas Jefferson. The other main political group at this time was the Anti-Federalists. They believe in a limited central government and were led by Thomas Jefferson. This group, the Anti-Federalists, later became the Democratic Republicans. So see, at one time, Democrats and Republicans were actually together. As time moves on, the Federalists kind of fade away. Democrats and Republicans have a difference of opinions, and so they then break away and form their own separate political parties. So the development of political parties in the United States. Federalists believe in a strong central government, and not only do they believe in it, but they believe that you need to continue to maintain a strong central government. Anti-Federalists, or the Democratic Republicans, they tried to limit the power of the federal government. They were more about giving the people more power, and the government simply just watches over the people, and as long as the people are doing what they're supposed to do, the government really is not going to get in their way very much. In the 1820s, Andrew Jackson led the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party was determined that the government should represent the common people. They felt that the government was working too hard at only making promises to the wealthy when the common people made up much of the population. They felt that they were not being recognized enough. In 1854 then, the Republican Party was formed by anti-slavery groups, and they nominated Abraham Lincoln for president in 1860. So what we end up having is Republicans are going to be anti-slavery, Democrats are going to be pro-slavery. So even today, oftentimes it's really easy to see where the boundaries can be drawn between Democrats and Republicans. The southeastern part of the United States are going to be mainly Democrat. Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, the Carolinas, Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky. You look at the states that were very high on slavery, that promoted slavery, they are mainly Democratic states today. Those that were non-slave states were Republican states. Okay, that's not going to work. Let's see what it was titled. Maybe I can bring it up. Formation of political parties. Let's go back to good old YouTube. See if I can, there it is, formation of political parties. I don't think that we're going to be able to find it. So bummer, we're not going to be able to watch that. It was a nice little video that kind of went back and talked a little bit about how our parties were formed. So we're just going to go ahead and move on. For over 140 years, these groups have been our country's two main political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. Democratic Party comes from Jefferson's Democratic Republicans. Republican Party's roots stemmed from anti-slavery groups in the mid-1800s, and we mainly just got a lot of that information from the previous slide. Okay, one-party governments. One-party governments are going to be things like dictatorships, socialists. These are, and you really can't even, they don't have political parties. There's just one person that's in power. This person usually seizes power through a military movement, an overthrow, a coup, something like that. Iraq under Saddam Hussein is a great example of a one-party government. North Korea today is a one-party government. Cuba, which is communist, and all of its years under Fidel Castro was a one-party government. In some countries there is only one political party, or there can be no parties, just the government or group in power. In countries like these, the power lies with one person or group, and some of these governments include dictatorships. And so some of those examples that I gave you were dictatorships. Again, Saddam Hussein was a military guy. He took control using the military in Iraq, and he was in control for quite some time until he was finally captured by the U.S. military. Now, one-party systems, kind of talked about this already. Dictatorships or totalitarian governments, one group or person has the power. People do not have essential freedoms. Totalitarian government is basically the same thing as a dictatorship, same concept, just different word. One person is in total power. Two-party systems create stable governments, and they allow for majority rule and the voters have a choice. Now, from time to time, we will get what is known as, in the United States, we will have what is called third-party politics. And some of the best examples of third-party politics were 1912, when you had the Progressive, or it was also known as the Bull Moose Party. And this was led by Teddy Roosevelt. And then most recently, you had, in 1992, there was a guy by the name of Ross Perot who ran for president. And he actually made a pretty big splash in the 1992 elections. If you go back to the 1912 elections, when Taft and Roosevelt, because they were both running as Republicans, and then you have Woodrow Wilson, who's the Democratic candidate, some of the Republicans went with Roosevelt, some Republicans went with Taft, but all Democrats voted with Woodrow Wilson, which is why he won. Okay, I'm going to bring this to a close. We're just about out of time. I'm going to start up another one, and on this one I'm going to show you a little video clip about Ross